Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of Flat Out after a fantastic weekend's racing in Ireland and England with the Irish Champions Festival course and the Haydock Sprint Cup. All of that to review, and then we've also got the Doncaster meeting coming up, the St. Leger meeting to look forward to and preview. And I'm in the company of Danny Archer and Jack Nichol. As you notice, Tom Bull is not with us today. He's off on his holidays. He's off in Spain for 2 weeks with his family. So we hope Tom has a good time out there. How are you, Danny?
Yeah, I wish I was in Spain, Joey. God, I've just come back from Greece myself. So, I came back and I flew straight to Ireland. My flight was delayed by 4 hours. After a lovely weekend of weather, it was then biblical over here yesterday. So, I'm a bit jealous of Tom, really.
Jesus, that's the man who has more holidays than anyone I've ever met.
Yeah,
or anyone in the racing TV office.
Right.
Danny, if anyone doesn't know out there, works at the social media side of things at Racing TV. How are you enjoying that, Danny? Settling into that well?
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah, been there 3-4 months now. So before I kind of joined, we didn't bizarrely ever have a social media manager, let alone a social media team. So it's just kind of been bringing that together. And we're kind of growing, trying to get a few more people on board and diversify between, the concerns with something like X and trying to move towards a greater focus on a YouTube and Instagram, a TikTok to try and manage that. So yeah, it's been a learning curve, and I think things have gone okay so far. I'm still here, Joey.
Good man. That got quite corporate quite quickly, didn't it?
It did. Just in case the boss is watching, I better pretend I'm doing a good job.
Good man. And Jack, you okay?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, just coming.
Enjoy the weekend.
And yeah, I did. Well, we were quite unlucky with the selections. Star of Orion, they went too slow for him and for Blessing for you. And yeah, Nashua, I'm sure we'll get onto that in a bit more depth later on. That was quite frustrating, but I really enjoyed the weekend's action. It was two top class days of racing, not just obviously in Ireland, over on these shores as well at Haydock and Ascot. There was some good racing there too. So really enjoyed it. I just wanted to touch on Tom there. Look how the other half live. He's out in a villa in Spain, isn't he? I think he's got another holiday booked in a couple of weeks as well in Portugal. So, yeah, he's really living it up at the moment, isn't he?
It's no surprise, is it? No surprise. Those Michelin star chefs, and their families globe-trotting around the world. It's, exactly how the other half live. If only we could live like that, that would be great. So I think probably the best place to start is with the Irish Champions Stakes and August Redan winning. I said I had a feeling in my stomach that he might just do it. It's that sort of thing. He was just not a betting proposition, really, with his blowout potential. And he really is an unusual kind of Ballydoyle horse, isn't he? With being so in and out, it's something you really do associate with Aidan's horses. They tend to be quite consistent, but he really is all over the place. What did you make of his performance, Danny?
I think you fit the nail on the head there, really, Joey. In terms of he's never really a betting proposition because he's a bit like a fighter who keeps, going down in the first in a fight, and then you can't really be with him for the rest of it. And I think that's the real bizarre thing about him is he flops, then he wins, he flops, then he wins, and he is that kind of idiosyncratic character that we've never really seen before, trained by Aidan O'Brien. And listen, he's now done wonders to get him back twice in the space of 3 or 4 months to win 3 Group 1 events, and there has to be a lot of praise to that. I thought Luxembourg shaped really well. I just think they got the race right, they got the tactics right, they made it a stiff test of stamina. They set out to really dictate matters, and that's what they did. And I'm sure you'll come on to that criticism regarding some of the other rides. I just think he was well positioned, Ryan, on August Road, and he was ready to pounce. They got their tactics right on this occasion, and that's how it panned out. And he's a fantastic racehorse, but he clearly has his concerns. And I think one thing some people were saying in Ireland on Saturday is what do they do next? Is it the Breeders' Cup and that's it? If he flops again, is that a massive concern from a breeding standpoint? I don't know. Maybe you're better judge than me on that one. But if there was one more flop, would people give him another chance? So I think now he's got those 4 Group 1s even now. I'm just interested what they do next, Joey. I don't know whether it would be Breeders' Cup and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he probably you wouldn't want him to flop again. So yes, probably give him as much prep as you can and pick one more target would probably be the way I would go. And the Breeders' Cup seems to be the way that they're leaning. I mean, Jack, did you hear anything after the race of where you think they're going to go with him next?
Yes, I think that is the plan. Breeders' Cup Turf. Aidan did touch on his travelling issues, and Ryan after the race just said about how important Quicker Ground is, such a beautiful moving horse. So obviously Quick Ground in Santa Anita looks perfect for him.
Yeah.
That should, well, it promises to be a proper race. I think Mostadap is also going there. So yeah, I look forward to that. I think that is both their confirmed targets. So yeah, that should be an absolute cracker. Just coming back to the race itself, they got their tactics spot on again, and you know, I think, well, he rightly got the plaudits for it, but I just want to say my own kind of tribute to Aidan O'Brien. Bring this horse back not once but twice now from the dead. You know, the way he bombed out in the Guineas and then again at Ascot. Realistically, you'd be hard pressed to really have any confidence, as you boys have just discussed there, in him. And again, they just got it right to a T, and they caught the pants down on a few of them there with the way that they got their tactics spot on. And yeah, as a Nashville backer, it's frustrating because this filly probably should have won a couple more Group 1s in her career, and she was just given a bit too much to do for my liking, but you know, this is the way they think she has to be ridden. I think now she does go straight to Champions Day at Ascot, and I think they probably are favouring the QE2 of the Champions Stakes, but she should have a great chance in one of those. She's already beaten Paddington, so if you meet him in the QE2, you could obviously say she's got grounds to do that. And I think the Champions Stakes could cut up to be quite a winnable race, so that would be an option as well. So, look, there's going to be maybe one more day still in Nashua. I don't know if they're going to go for her again next season, but no, she's still a top class filly, and it was just frustrating for her backers.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really want to jump on the bandwagon of jockey bashing to a large extent, but you and Holly aren't best of friends, are you? Because you never seem to be with her on the days when she's hitting the heights, and she's always causing you a few problems when you are with her. But it wasn't the best of rides, I think we have to say, on the day from Holly. I felt a bit sorry for Kevin Stott, to be fair, because I didn't think he was too far wrong on King of Steel. I mean, I think he had him a bit far back to begin with, and then when they kind of eased up a little bit in the middle part of the race, he got a bit closer, and on the bend I thought he was in a decent position to strike, but obviously it's then resulted in him losing his job as AMO's retained rider. Danny, I mean, what did you make of the ride in the Irish Champions Stakes on King of Steel?
I'm actually just watching it back now, Joe, as well. I mean, you know, when they do turn in, I mean, he's only a length behind August Rodin. For me, he held every chance, but there's just something about this horse. A lot of people were saying that he'd be better coming back to 10 furlongs, and I'd written a piece. I didn't think he was. I think he's actually probably better over that longer trip. He's got more time as a big horse to get rolling, especially at Leopardstown, where you really just come in with those final 2 furlongs to go. And have got to really show your turn of foot. And I don't think he lost anything in defeat, but it's not like he was staying on strongly like a Nashbar at the finish. When I was actually at the Curragh on Sunday, someone did tell me that the end was nigh, and also they had a couple of runners that day, and you could see that there was a frosty nature to how they were between each other. And as it turned out, of course, Monday morning you got the news, but I thought it was quite harsh. But then a lot of people are saying, you know, if you take the AMO racing job, you kind of know what comes with it. And you look what happened to Ross Orion. It is sort of that job where it can be great for a couple of months, then it can all go sour. So he's had a good season. It's disappointing from his point of view as well, I guess. Where does he go now in terms of, he's made a few good contacts there, but how does that leave him now back as a freelancer? But I don't know with King of Steel. I think he's a good horse, but I don't know whether he's just shy of top class. And for me, there were no real excuses.
No, I would tend to agree with that too, and I think just in general on the situation, like the people getting stuck in, as you say, you know exactly what you're getting involved with AMO racing. They operate in a certain manner. There is a lot of kind of sentimentality in racing. I think the main story here is also obviously Kevin Stott has managed to ride a Group 1 winner and some Group winners out of this deal for a year, so that's great for him. You know, so I think it's been a really good sort of chance for him to show his talents. And obviously it's come to an end, like you know it probably will do with this particular operation. The story for me is why the silliness of them having a retained rider. Like that seems to me the thing. Like why bother? Like, you know, if you're going to have these problems, like and sack them at the drop of a hat, I don't really understand the motivation for having one when you've got the Irish Champion Stakes there. You've got a lot of riders that top quality, like best in class riders over there in Ireland that you could have ride King of Steel, but you're going to give it to your retained rider and then have a falling out with him afterwards. It just seems like a very odd way for them to operate. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo what you say. It's the way they kind of operate. It raises eyebrows. And I mean, if you're a Dominic French-Davis, for example, I mean, the trainer situation as a whole of a can of worms, probably not for today, but you're probably thinking there, Jesus, how long will I be in a job for? Do you know what I mean? If you get it wrong. But coming back to Kevin Stott, I think probably he always had maybe had a little bit to prove. I think it's fair to say Kevin wouldn't be right up there, you know, in that very, very top bracket with your likes of your Ryan Moore. So I think for one personally, King of Steel, what Danny said, I don't think he is a real top bracket horse. I thought he just wasn't good enough on the day. But when these horses get beaten and Kia Joorabchian expects them to win, it's inevitably going to fall on Kevin Stott's head. So it probably was always destined to end in tears. What would have happened, say, an Andrea Taney or a James Doyle came up for grabs? Would he be wanting them instead of Kevin Stott? So, no, it's interesting to see how it's panned out. He's obviously cut it short by a couple of months. It's just there's just no class to the move, to be honest. You'd be very disappointed, really, for all parties, and he obviously just has a bit of an ego, I'd say.
I'd probably just see who's best available. You know, I mean, I think the funny thing is, you know, didn't the 150-1 AMO racing horse, the old retainer, rode a winner at Royal Ascot, lost a Ryan for them. You know, so it swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, why bother? You know, you've got like, I mean, what do you have? Like Chris Hayes, Colin Keane, Billy Lee, people like that all sitting around on Irish Champion Stakes time, and you're thinking, well, why bother? Like, these big races, you've got plenty of options on the day to pick the best in class. Or the
it
best
was staggering that Colin Keane, the Irish champion jockey, didn't have a ride in the Irish Champion Stakes. But
you're there thinking, surely Kia, you got a change of tactic here. But I do think that you know that people, I just don't like the sort of the nonsense where people say, oh, who's going to take horses from him, or who's going to accept the job when it comes around. It's like, it's a great job for a certain type of person to have. You know exactly what you're getting into, and at the end of the day, he does seem, as with Ross Orion, not to hold a particular grudge about it afterwards, which is the main thing. I think much less of him if there was a real grudge and, you know, there was a problem. But he's still happy to give Rosser rides. I'm sure he'll be happy to give Kevin Stott rides in the future. So it just seems like overly sentimental, and this sort of old way of thinking, you know, judging and being overly sentimental about the way things are. Everyone knows what they're getting into with them, but you get a great opportunity in return is the only way I see it. In terms of the rest of Irish Champions Festival, lads, what would you say would be the highlight, Danny? What other than the Irish Champion Stakes, what for you stood out performance above all?
I'd probably go performance-wise because she's just a brilliant filly, Tahira. I thought that could have turned messy, and it always can, the matron. But Chris Hayes, I think, to be fair, has got to come in for a lot of credit. You know, there was a bit of harsh criticism I felt after 1,000 Guineas. She clearly just was in need of the run more than anything, and that's why she got out-battled. And she's just been brilliant since. And I thought he gave her a really confident ride, came on the outside, and she put it to bed in a matter of strides in good style. I think you'd have to say Henry Longfellow, 4,000 winners for Aidan O'Brien, fantastic achievement, but also he slammed, you know, his three rivals. He looks a very, very exciting horse. I think now 6-1 for the Classics next year. So I'd give him a nod. And from a social media point of view, Broadhurst, hope my boss is listening to this bit. I left before the last, Joey, to miss the traffic. So I saw it on my phone on the way back, and my goodness, did he stay on? He looked thrown in, €620,000 purchase. But just the manner of the performance and how he stayed on was pretty staggering. So interested to see where he goes next. So listen, it was really good. I really enjoyed both tracks. I think they're both friendly. It's a great atmosphere in Ireland as well, and lovely scenes when all the horses were coming back in, and you can really appreciate, the crowd really appreciate just what these stars are. So yeah, really enjoyed it. But I think Tahira and Broadhurst are two for me.
And Jack, carrying on the theme of Tahira, would you say Tahira's best run of her life could be the 1,000 guineas, the English one? You could make the argument, couldn't you?
To be fair, I think that just on the weekend there was probably a career best. To be fair, you have to win really, and getting beat by Morge probably isn't up to the standard of.
But they were pulled miles clear, and I think on time ratings, it was the best. It was the best performance of her career technically.
They have, but I was much more taken with that, and
yeah,
I suspect they'll now go on to the Breeders' Cup, and I hope. Well, they could step her up. I hope they stay at a mile. I just think why broke what's not fixed. I was really impressed with that performance. It's really solid form in behind. Rogue Millennium was the right filly in behind. She's bounced back to form as well. No, I just think she's such a wonderful filly. She probably wasn't at her best and still won at Ascot as well. And yeah, she's just a real superstar. In terms of the 2-year-olds, Henry Longfellow, yeah, of course he was really impressive, and he increased the distance on the second horse there, Islands in the Stream. But you know, he didn't really have to come on too much. Bucanera for Fuerte was a big disappointment. We kind of forecast that would happen. He should probably just stick to sprinting trips. They got the tactics all wrong as well. But
that's putting it mildly, isn't it? It was an absolute bloodbath. Completely undermining your own chance. Yeah.
Baybridge as well. Just touching away from, I thought he was they went slow enough for him, and it probably just favoured him the way it worked out. It'd be interesting if they do go for the Arc now, but as I mentioned just before there, the Champions Day race could just cut up for him and be a nice spot for him. I think there's bits of 8-1, which I've been hovering on the button whether to get stuck into him. I just want to hear an update to see if they're going to go for the Arc.
Why would I just think just on that point to pick you up to kind of continue it, it's like you run him in that race surely with the intention of going to the Arc, don't you?
100%.
Like there's no, and there was nothing there to suggest that you wouldn't be entirely encouraged. You know, like last year he had the break from the middle of the summer all the way through to the Champion Stakes and produced the best performance of his life. So they've come and run him here for a bit of a sighter at 1.5 miles. He settled beautifully in the early part of the race compared to how he's settled sometimes, and he looked powered through the line and did it with his head in his chest. I mean, I don't think you could take anything but positives out of that and think Arc de Triomphe with this horse.
It just wouldn't have answered the question of a proper test at 1.5 miles, but you're never kind of going to get that at Kempton. So I just wonder if they might think, well, let's just wait the Champions Day. It's probably going to be a much easier race. I think what's going to be his biggest challenger, Auguste Rodin's not going to run. King of Steel, I believe the plans for the Breeders' Cup turf as well for him. Desert Crown's out for the season. The next in's Horizon Door, who admittedly is a progressive horse, but I mean, by no means going to be a patch on some of the horses that could run in the Arc, for example. So I just wonder if they might swerve. It wouldn't be the first horse. Cracksman comes to mind instantly, where they thought, well, let's just bypass the Arc, go for the easier race, bank 700 grand. But yeah, just coming back to Ireland, which was a topic of debate last week, but Kyprios, I was a little disappointed with him. I thought, he had a fine opportunity there. Obviously, Save the Last Dance coming out. Eldarov, he's been in pretty average form this season, and yeah, I thought he beat him quite comfortably. And of course, Aidan's going to come out and say he was pleased with that, but I saw quite a few on social media there saying, he's a great bet now at 6-1 for Ascot. But bloody hell, going on from getting beat by Eldarov to naturally he obviously will come on, but you're going to be coming up against the likes of Coltrane and some of these better stayers, and Jesus, I wouldn't be touching 6-1 on the back of that. And no, I was a little underwhelmed, I must admit, but I'm interested to hear what your thoughts were.
He was blowing hard after the race, I have to say. He looked badly in need of it, but I thought he looked pretty fit. I'm no Ken Pitterson, but I thought he looked pretty fit on the way out. So I think they were a little disappointed. I think the body language was, let's fake it till we make it sort of thing. And they were probably, because really when Emily Dickinson came out as well, it did look a bit of given her form on soft ground, it did look a bit of a penalty kick. But he was beaten, 3 or 4 furlongs out, Jack. I know he's a horse who need to be nudged along, but he was really off the bridle a long way from home. And you could, the warning signs were there. So I'm a big fan of this horse, but I'd probably be the same. I think it's a tricky one to see that he's going to, the way that a cold train or something has improved this year as well. You hear the reports that he's lucky to be alive, Kyprios, let alone getting him back on the course. So I don't know. I'm on the fence with Kyprios. I'm a fan, but I think after that, I think I'm watching brief next time out, Joey.
Indeed, and Jack wanted just to hear my response to that. It was obviously a bit of fun between the Desert Crown, Kyprios, which we'd rather back for those races. As it turns out, obviously, Desert Crown didn't run, and we found out the Kyprios on the day ran fairly flat, but at 5-2 went off 4-6. Obviously, a lot of horses came out, so that was artificial, really. But I still stand by that. I think there was enough logic for it, but I still rather back Kyprios at 5-2 for that race in that situation beforehand. Obviously, I know now it's hard to assess afterwards. I still think, given the price he went off, it was the market was firmly in my camp really there. But whatever, maybe Jack was correct. So kicking on, lads, Was there anything else? Any other business over the weekend? Do we want to mention the Haydock Sprint Cup? Anyone have any strong views on regional?
No, Jack.
It was such a messy race that, and the Group 1, the Flying Five, and just touching on Haydock, God, Sacred as well. Shaquille, I just wonder maybe he reared up just before the stalls opened, whether he might have just pulled a muscle. I think it was James Millman who said on Twitter that there could be something to that. It'd be interesting to see if anything comes to light in the next couple of days. Sacred, look, at this point, she is just a cliff horse for me. She was very disappointing, and we know she's probably best fresh. I wonder now if they might just retire her, that there's not really going to be anything for her. But no, I just wonder, the placed horses and the winner came up the middle to near side. Maybe that was the place to be. Shaquille was obviously a bit more towards the far side, but in terms of that, it was a really puzzling race to kind of work out. And obviously the placed horses were wild prices. So no, it was a funny old race, and the same in Ireland, wasn't it? So it's just one of those things with the sprint division. You could probably run them 10 times and get 10 different races. There's not really a standout.
So, lads, moving on to this week, we've got the St. Leger meeting to look forward to. Obviously, I think a quite intriguing, if not maybe the most top-class renewal of the St. Leger. I don't know, maybe you have different views on that, but it does look a very interesting one from a betting perspective. But before we get to that, let's start with our best bets for the weekend. It's going to be a smaller betting section this week, as we're doing an earlier record to kind of review some wonderful action for the weekend. So obviously we're a long way out, which is something to bear in mind, but I'm sure we found some interesting propositions for you. I think I'll come to you first, Jack. You want to start us off with your best bet for this weekend or this week?
There's a touch of trepidation about this, Joey. There's a bit of rain about, isn't there? So it's hard to know. Tuesday morning here, we're before decks for Thursday. Looking ahead, what could the ground be? I think we're already on the easier side of good to soft. We were just discussing there before we start recording. It could well be pretty soft come the weekend. So I'm going to be a tentative selection, but one that I think is pretty safe and is going to run, and that's in the Portland on Saturday, and that's T Spirit, who I thought there was a shoots of light there just on the weekend behind Russell. Around this time last year, he was winning a listed race at Tipperary. They went on to run in the Abbey. Of course, he flopped there, but I think it just shows you the kind of regard that maybe what he shows at home and in his performances. His course form is pretty solid as well. It's 2-3, 2-1. And I just thought that there was enough there last time out. He's shown that when he does get into a bit of form, he can rack up a sequence. I think he's won 3 in a row and 2 in a row before. So I think he's probably a horse to get on side when he hits a bit of form. And at around 14-1, he's down to around a mark of, I think, 93 now off the top of my head. So there's a bit of mark now. He's slid down a little bit. And I just think at around 14-1, it's a nice spot for him. We know he likes the track as well. And I think he has that bit of back form there that you can probably hang your hat on. And if it's a going day, I can see him going really close off around 14-1 each way.
An interesting selection indeed. Danny, what have you got for us?
2 for me. First one is in the Portland as well. I like Kim and Grace for Richard Hughes. I'm following this horse. I'm doing the Cliff one here. I thought I had a right old chance at York. Ryan Moore was booked. I thought everything was in place. And she just met trouble around the 3 furlong pole when she was just starting to get rolling. And if you go and watch that race back, she really stays on strongly at the finish. She's one of those, I hate those comments, strongest at the line, but she really was seeing it out strongly. And I think the big thing about her, now down to a mark of 87, a previous win came off a mark of 93. Okay, that came on the all-weather, but she's also got a win off 85 at York. She's well positioned to go close. Also, she's got form at Doncaster on heavy ground. She was beat on that occasion, but she didn't lose too much, I thought, in defeat. So I probably wouldn't want masses of rain for her. But Kim and Grace, I think it's just coming down to a workable mark. And the other one, I love a bit of sushi, Joey. And with that in mind, you've got to get with Nagiri, who is one horse who, if she runs on Sunday for Rafe Beckett, she will love conditions in the Scepter Stakes. I've been with her on all 3 of her starts so far in terms of the winning ones at Haydock. She then won again at Haydock over a mile on heavy ground. And then she was deeply impressive at York. She slammed her rivals in a fillies handicap there. And I just think she was a group horse masquerading in a handicap, that old line. Now up £11 to a mark of 91. I think there's a lot more to come. I think Rafe brought her along quite slowly and steadily. And I think hopefully now she can make her mark in Paddon Company.
Excellent. I mean, you're kind of breaking the rules of the best bet section there, Danny, by taking 2 swings. I mean, that's not how. As it's your first time on the show, we'll let you get.
I'll know for next time.
We'll let you off. We'll let you off on that. And for me, another old friend this weekend. I think it's always when we're doing these anti-post kind of bets earlier in the week, we're looking for some kind of angle, something that's going to go off a little bit shorter, or something that's going to have, or a field that's going to cut up. And for me, the most interesting one in that regard on the weekend is the Doncaster. It's the Betfred Park Stakes. And I'm going to give another one of our old friends, Biggles, another swing in here each way. I think there's a chance this race could cut up. I think there's a few horses in here. Sandrine should have been a ring. Broadhurst at the moment. Jumbie not going to run probably because of the ground. Pogo, is he going to run on heavy ground? I think we've got to operate basically on the basis that we're looking at probably soft to very soft ground. I mean, I think they're forecasting in some places 3 centimeters of rain today and continued rain all through the week, rain on the weekend. So it just seems like we want a horse that's going to deal with pretty testing conditions, and Biggles is certainly that. He has plenty of good form on heavy and sort of very soft ground. He finished ahead of Spycatcher, who's likely to go off probably favourite for this. We've got Audience in here, is another one who doesn't really have much form on soft ground. The one time he's run recently with a bit of soft in the description, he was last behind Kinross at Goodwood. So is he really a solid yardstick at the top of this? And then we've obviously got Spycatcher, who has very good form on soft ground. Finished behind Biggles when having to give him £3 in the Victoria Cup. I don't think there's probably too much of these on ability if we take Biggles' run in the Bunbury Cup, where he looked extremely progressive on face value. And so I think 16 to 1 is a little bit insulting about him, given that in mind. He's run really well at Doncaster before. And with all that in mind, I think he's probably one of those that deserves another shot in these pattern class races now. And we'll see where we are with him this weekend. And at 16 to 1 each way in a field that could cut up, I think he's a very, very interesting bet. So it would be Biggles for me. And that concludes the best bet section. Jack, do you want to start us off with a little bit of your thoughts on the St. Leger this weekend?
Yeah, I kind of echo what you said earlier. I'm not sure it is a real top class renewal, but it's certainly a fascinating renewal this year. It's hard to really kind of give my opinion yet, just knowing about the ground. Like, if it came up real soft, I'd be quite sweet on a rest. Obviously, he was a selection a few weeks ago there. If it came up real testing, he'd be very interesting. I just don't know if he has the class of maybe one or two of these on a bit more of a livelier surface. The one I'd probably come down on, and it's probably not going to be a surprise, and this isn't just a degree of bias, but I just find it really hard to pick
There's
those
always,
in desert.
there's always a degree of bias when you're talking about haggis horses, Jack.
Arise, His Majesty.
He is one of the best trainers in the world, though, as we know. But
Yeah.
I just think it's very hard to really pick holes in him. He's just a horse on a real upward curve. He was much better margin for his victory at Goodwood. He only won by a neck there, but I think if he had been beaten that day, William Haggis would have pulled Tom Marquand off the horse, because he was by far the best horse in that race. And I'm kicking myself a little bit, because I do remember at the time for a few weeks after that, he was around the 8-1 mark. I still think there's a little bit of juice in the lemon there at around 5-1. I'm not sure about the form of the York race, the Great Voltager. It was such an odd race, really. Obviously, the pace and Ryan again showing why he is the best in the world and got it right with his tactics. Continuous, to me, he just doesn't scream the classiest of horses, does he? And there was some funny market moves. I think, didn't Gregory touch 12-1 on the back of that run? That was a bit of an oversight. But again, I think that there's been chinks exposed in his armour. And I just think, coming back to Desert Hero, that he is probably the most solid option. Middle Earth, I really do like that form line. Nakib as well, he's boosted that. But the Melrose itself hasn't exactly been advertised quite strongly. I like Middle Earth, but again, I don't think he's good enough. I think of the Gosden horses, Arrest could be the one, but as I say, he would probably need a good bit of juice in the ground. He'd be a very interesting one for the Champions Day in the Long Distance Cup. But coming down to the selection, it's a tentative selection, wouldn't be a strong one, but I just think Desert Hero, you could go quite muggy and go each way at this point, but I just think just a solid, a sensible win option at the moment.
That's definitely one we could have boiled down to 30 seconds for Jack there. Just the William Haggis horse is the answer. But no, I'm only jesting. Very good case made indeed. Danny, what do you think?
Well, Desert Hero, he's got to win on heavy at Redcar. If you've got to win at heavy and Redcar, I think you can win anywhere. Can't you, Jack? We've had great memories of Redcar together. For me, I don't mind the Voltager form, and the thing I like about Continuous is he's got that very soft win on at Saint-Cloud. He's one horse who's already proven as well on the testing ground as well last year. I thought he could only go and win that race. Whatever you make of Frankie's ride on Gregory, I thought he was deeply impressive. He looked like a horse who's getting better as he is stepping up in trip, and I think this extra 2 furlongs might even yield a bit more improvement. Now, I understand what you two say about maybe he just lacks the class, but I don't think this is the classiest renewal. And with Gregory coming into this, for me, under a bit of a cloud, I know John Gosden, coming out after the race, saying he thought it was a lovely prep. I would be concerned on the back of that, just how free he was and just how it all worked out from a pace point of view. So with that in mind, I think I'd agree with Jack with Arrest at a bigger price. And I think one thing about him is maybe he's gone under the radar again following that Newbury win. It wasn't the most dazzling, but he got the job done. And one thing is it probably got stamina to burn. So I think just based on the ground, I'd be with Continuous. And I think this race will cut up a bit because Tower of London, I think, is going to the Melbourne Cup. Yeah. Denmark's not going to run, I don't think, off the Melrose. Will Alexandropoulos be the pace angle for his stable companion? So it could turn a bit tactical, and I liked Continuous's ability to quicken at York. So I'd probably just be with him, but I think it's trappy, Joey.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. He will get a nice setup, won't he? I think, if you're looking at the race from a pace perspective, you've got Chess Piece, who's likely to be pressing the pace, and Arrest could well make it. You've got Gregory in there as well. He's not going to be far away at all. And you've got Continuous and Desert Hero there, who are just going to be tracking. The thing with Continuous, although despite his breeding, he looks like a very fast horse to me. I wonder whether this is going to be right up his street. It's very hard to make head and tail of. I really like Chess Piece. I think he's progressed with each run. He's getting better and better. We don't really know where his ceiling is. His horse I really like, but I would probably lean towards Desert Hero slightly, just because I think the race is going to set up quite nicely for him. So yeah, if I was pushed, I'd say Desert Hero as well. But I think it is a trappy race, and you make a case for a load of them. Although Arrest is probably one that's slightly overpriced, I think, and there's been a bit of money in the early part of the week for him, and I understand that with the weather forecast for sure. Right, kicking on, lads, the Champagne Stakes. Danny, do you have any kind of strong view on the Champagne? I mean,
I'm a big fan of the. This is very boring. I'm a big fan of the favourite. I don't think you can get away from Racecourses in terms of what this horse has achieved in 2 runs, and I was deeply impressed with the victory at Ascot. Given a bit of time off since, I just think is a hugely exciting prospect. I thought Blan. I don't think that was a great scenario personally. I wouldn't be taking too much out of that form. Johannes Brahms ran well, I thought, at York, but I just thought, on everything I've seen so far and from a visual perspective, Jack might have more of a thing on the times or whatever, but I thought Racecourses looked a horse with the highest caliber, and I think there's plenty more to come.
Any thoughts, Jack, or would you like to kick on to maybe say the Doncaster Cup on Friday?
I think we can keep this pretty swift. Racecourses probably just wins here. It was a very average gym crack, so you can knock the form of Johannes Brahms, and Alblan, I think he wants really quick round, so I'm not even sure he would run. Maybe just because it's Godolphin, they probably think let's roll the dice, but Racecourses just wins here, I think.
Grand. And so in that case, would you like to give us an opinion on the Doncaster Cup on Friday?
Yes. Again, I'm going on the proviso of softer ground. It'd be great to see Trushan back. He could be a sneaky one in here. And of course, Sweet William advertising the handicap form. I don't think there's going to be too much to bridge in terms of that gap, but he's a bit of a rogue. I could actually see him running a Group 1, finishing second, and then running him back in like a listed or a Group 3, and then finding a way to get beat again. He's such a quirky character, isn't he? And look, it's so hard to kind of get away from Coltrane. He's the one who kind of always shows up, didn't he? Of course, he produced that boil over last year. He went off 9-1, Trushan 2-9 last year. I was there that last year. And again, Trushan probably wasn't given the most optimal ride. He is quite a tricky ride, isn't he? But
leave Holly alone.
Less of that, yeah. No, Coltrane is short enough. It's not a betting race. I expect him to win, but I do hope we see Trushan. I wouldn't give up on him just yet, and I think Connections have just done the sensible thing now, and just think let's just wait for his right conditions, and be folly to rule him off just yet.
Yeah, I was quite close to best betting him myself. I think it's absolutely fascinating with Trushan whether this wind operation is going to sort him out. I mean, he has been running for a year or so like a horse that has been struggling with his wind. He's just getting to that point where he's tanked into races and he's just been caught and then just tied up and then stayed on a little bit at the end. It could just be that this horse has been crying out for a wind operation, and that's exactly what he get. You may well improve. Obviously, long distance cup, Ascot's going to be his big day. You would have thought. It was quite funny in a way, wasn't it, that Goodwood turned up soft just the year that he wasn't actually running in it. I mean, it was that must have been a real kick in the what's for Alan King. But yes, it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, I haven't heard much. They still seem to be talking about going hurdling with him next year, don't they? I mean, which would be fascinating to see, but. Not
Him
something we support.
The moon, Joey.
Yeah, no, well, Jesus Christ, I wouldn't want to be on reach for the moon going over fences or hurdles for the first time. Jesus, Danny, do you have a view on the Doncaster Cup?
Yeah, I'm a big Coltrane fan, but the only word of warning I'd say is the ground for him. He's only raced once on softer than good to soft, and that came when beaten in the Cesarewitch back in 2020. So in this race last year was good to soft, and I think if it got very testing, that would put me off Coltrane just because he doesn't have much form on that. So maybe at the prices, Sweet William we know is proven, won on the day when Goodwood was abandoned, so the heavy ground's not going to be a concern. Just wonder after the Ebor how much that's taken out of Sweet William, but I think this would be a no bet for me at the prices because I just think if it came up soft, Coltrane is still the best horse, but that kind of brings other horses into play.
And that's the thing with Coltrane. I take a slightly different view to Jack on that, and that I always think he's very easy to be against because he's a very, very admirable horse who always goes off a fairly contracted price. That if something's in there on their day that's got a bit of class, will probably beat him. But if nothing quite turns up, he'll win. And so he's one of those. If you backed him every time, I imagine you probably break even at the end of his career. He'll win some of these big days, but he'll never go off the kind of price that you're going to make some money on. He's always probably a little short against some of the classy ones. I don't think there's any doubt Trushan has more natural ability than Coltrane, but you just know Coltrane's going to run his race. And these, yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Jack has a different view.
I just think Coltrane probably wins.
There we go. The catchphrase. Any other business at Doncaster, lads? Jack, is there any other race you would like to cover from a preview perspective?
Yes, I'd be quite strong on La Trinidad in the closing mile handicap on the Saturday. Unfortunately, there's no market yet, but he caught the eye massively at York last time. If you get a chance, he was 40-1 on the day, but he was a real eye catcher for me. It's been a decent form. He's already won at Doncaster this year, and he has really solid course form. I believe it's 1-4-1. Obviously, that one come this summer, but he was fourth in this race as a 3-year-old. We know he's a solid performer, and I just think since York, this will have been the race they've had in mind. I'm hoping he'll be a bit of a price. There's a few in there that I hope will make up the market. It's hard to know at the moment, but I'm hoping for 16-1 or bigger, and I think he'll be a real solid each way option. And then on Sunday, it's probably a waste of my time mentioning this because she'll probably not run, but I think Coppice in the Scepter Stakes, a full sister to Calix. It'd be interesting in her dropping back in trip. I think 7 furlongs could see her go on again. We know that Group 1 form at Newmarket's pretty solid. That was on easier ground, so if it isn't too testing, maybe they'll let her take a chance on good to soft. Cachet, for example, I think she's probably one that would make up the market, and I think Coppice would be a proper bet. But as I say, I don't think she's probably going to run. It's probably going to come up soft or worse. But those would be two very much to note. La Trinidad, I'm really quite sweet on him. I've been waiting on him, and I was really glad to see him in the entries this week.
And finally, Danny, any other business for you? Any other races you want to preview ahead of the weekend? As I mentioned,
Nagiri in the Scepter, but I'm surprised that the Haggis fanboy hasn't given Seatheme a good nod in the Park Hill. I thought you'd be all over that because I really like this filly's attitude to land the Gautress, and I thought she was probably worth more than the winning margin suggests. I know she's entered up on Champions Day, but I don't think the ground, given what I've seen so far, she's got to win on soft ground at Donny. I thought if Connections decided to go there, I thought she'd have a right chance. I wasn't too concerned about the step up in trip. Jack, I don't know, is that possible as the Park Hill?
I'm just not sure if she's going to be a real superstar, and it was real hard work. So it was enough to temper enthusiasm for a bet for me this week.
Oh, well, there you go. Thanks, Jack. But the other two would be Nader King, who I think he just didn't handle the undulations at Goodwood last time. He runs on the Thursday in a handicap 4:45 over 12 furlongs. I think he's better than he showed on that occasion, and maybe back at a more conventional track. He's a winner on soft ground. He's got a chance. And one horse who just, I don't know what's happened, is Liberty Lane. Carl-Burke's had a great year, had 2 winners obviously in Ireland at the weekend. This horse was second to Waipiro on debut this season at Newmarket, and I thought he would really go on and progress, but he's flattered to deceive. He was beaten in the Dante, and then back in handicap company the last twice he has struggled, but I thought he hinted at a slight return to his best ability at Newmarket last time out over the mile. I think that's probably his trip, but he is also a very impressive winner on soft ground, and I think in the concluding handicap on the Saturday, 5:20, I thought he would have a good chance. Liberty Lane.
Yeah, I can only second that. I mean, when I went to see Carl Burke ahead of the York Ebor meeting, he was still very positive and retained a lot of hope in Liberty Lane and faith. So, yeah, he'll certainly be one to watch with that soft ground form in mind. All that remains, gents, just thanks very much to you, Danny, for filling in for our globe-trotting host.
No, thank you. I'll have to give him a run for his money, I think. I've got to get back out there, I think. But no, thank you, guys. And keep up the good work and enjoy the action this weekend.
Fantastic. Thanks to you, Jack, as always. And obviously, I have to say thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Opulence Thoroughbreds. Please go and check out their website and get involved with them if you can. They're a wonderful way to get involved in horse ownership. And a final reminder, obviously, to bet responsibly, do it enjoyably, keep it fun, and everyone will be grand. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on Flat Out.